Okay, next chapter deals with clubs and organizations that I belong to uh, in high school. Again, the chapter I think covered it quite well, but I've had two or three additional thoughts, not big ones, but I thought I'd share it with you on this little video. In Montpelier, which is where we went to my freshman and sophomore year, as I mentioned, homecoming, there were activities, as there always are at high schools and so forth, but homecoming was particularly a fun thing that I got to do when I was a freshman and sophomore. It was kind of a big deal in Montpelier. I remember they had what they called snake dances down Main Street. All of the kids in the high school, and by the way, they almost always all attended all of these activities. It wasn't, well, come and if you want to, and today a few show up and most don't, and that sort of thing. It's no big deal, but in those days everybody came, from freshmen to seniors, and there was a snake dance. They'd grab hands and snake dance down through Main Street and yelling and screaming and singing the song, the Montpelier High School fight song and all that sort of thing, snake dance. And the bonfire that evening was kind of fun. Big old bonfire. I mean, it wasn't just a little roasted hot dog or the marshmallow by that bonfire, but all the student body would get in a ring around this great big bonfire, and the team, would show up, and the coaches and the cheerleaders and all that sort of thing. And so that was kind of fun, bonfire. They had a parade before in homecoming. They had a parade. I don't remember being in it or fixing the float, but I remember there were parades during homecoming. So it was kind of fun. Now you noticed I mentioned in the book that of the organizations that I belong to, conspicuous by their absence was organizations such as the National Honor Society or French Club or the Chess Club or some of these others. Didn't belong to any of those. Didn't have much interest in any of that. But my grades in school were okay, but they were nothing to write home to mother about, of course. In high school, I got better grades in college than I did in high school because I was more motivated, I guess, or more mature to recognize the value of it and so forth. I did fine in school, but there was no National Honor Societies or valedictorian addresses as a result of my performance in school. Did get to play 4 games of basketball in my sophomore year. I played as a freshman. I mentioned that and so forth, but I got to play 4 games in my sophomore year. One of them was against Paris, Fielding High School. The only time I ever played against Fielding was, I think, the second game of the year. We played against Fielding, and as I recall, we beat them pretty good there. But at any rate, Fielding was the big rival, as I've mentioned before in other chapters. My mom being from Fielding, my dad from Montpelier. Nothing short of a miracle that the two got together because of the severe nature of that rivalry between those two little teeny towns and schools. But I got to play 4 games of basketball before my knee locked up and couldn't go anymore, and had the operation down in Logan with Dr. Worley, and of course had to sit out the rest of the year. If it had been today, I wouldn't needed to sit out most of the year, because today they do it arthroscopically, just little pinholes or pencil holes in the knee, and they put in cameras and repair instruments and so forth, and they can take care of all of those knees without opening them up. I have a scar on my knee, my left knee, that is about, I don't know, more than a foot in length, I think. They opened it up and had to go in and repair it that way, as opposed to today's techniques, which are much more advanced. But so I was out for the rest of the year, and I was on crutches for a good share of the winter semester. Of course, basketball occurs in the winter, and crutches and bare leg Montpelier don't go too well. Heavy snow and ice and so forth. I'd go to school every day, and most days I got a ride. My mom or dad would take me and drop me off and so forth, and then I'd get on the old crutches and go into the school. But extracurricular activities such as the ball games, I always wanted to go to the ball games even though I wasn't able to participate. Most of the time they would take me, but there were occasions when I had to crutch from my house down to the high school to watch these games. It wasn't a tremendous distance if you were just walking, but on crutches it was a bit of a challenge there. Let's see, I can figure out how many blocks that is. Let's see, it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, about 6 blocks away is all. But on crutches, that made it a little tougher. And of course, with the snow and the ice, added an increase of difficulty there. Now, one thing about the crutches I mentioned, they'd let me off at school. I'd go into the school, but in walking from my car to the school, ice and snow would build up on the suction cups on the bottom of the crutches. Well, when I went into the school and the floor was, pretty slippery by nature anyway, that ice and snow would take over. I remember more than once those crutches slipping out to the side, and I'd have to hop and fall down or whatever. I remember one time I was going up and down the stairs in Montpelier on those crutches, and they gave way, and I fell down the stairs, and luckily didn't ruin my knee operation where I had to go do it again, but it was a little painful and not very, a little humbling there to tumble down the stairs because the crutches slipped out from under me. So there's that. All right. I mentioned at the end of the chapter about the S Club in Soda Springs. After we moved to Soda Springs, the S Club being the athletic club, voluntary association with it. Now, those things that I recounted in the book are absolutely true. They happened. All of those things happened and more that I can't tell you about. I mentioned at the end of the chapter, decorum doesn't allow me to go into the most gross part of the initiation process. The hamburger and sausage eating and the learning of the S Club motto. Well, I can tell you a little bit about that. I mentioned all the skunks were disrobed and the members of the S Club had paddles. Well, there was a motto of the S Club, and they would be paired up, one S Club member with one skunk, and the member of the S Club would bring their paddles with the grooves in them and so forth, and they would go each phrase of the motto of the S Club, and the skunk would have to repeat it back. If you missed a word or a phrase, then the paddle would be forthcoming, and that wasn't too fun until you got the total motto down, word perfect. And so there was a lot of pain involved in learning of that motto. The olive race and the other things that I referred to, I'm not going to tell you about those, but well, let me just say this. My mom has read my books, she said 4 or 5 times. But when I go to visit her, she always tells me that these are all just made up. All of this stuff that I keep talking about are all just prevarications or a figment of my imagination, my fertile imagination. So she thinks they're all just fake. But let me tell you, everything in these books with one chapter, and I'll tell you which one it is as we get to it, is all as I remember it. Now, if I remembered it improperly or wrongly, then that's on me. But the things that I remember are absolutely, the things I recounted in the books are absolutely true. So, sorry, Mom. All of this stuff that I've recounted in these chapters is factual as I remember it. So, that takes care of that chapter. Thanks very much for your attention. See you again next time.